So we're going to go into 17. 17:1, and it says, then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, it's the very last, and it's boom, 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 all these things poured out. This is the end. This is the day of the Lord. This is all coming down. So now John is going to be shown another vision and another description of this time Babylon. And this is where we're going to get into a study of Babylon, the great whore, the kingdoms, of the world. And it's going to have to do with the judgment of the world in this chapter. So verse 1, then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. When it comes to do with fornication, if a man commits fornication with somebody, it has to do with sexual relationships, intimacy, right? When a man commits adultery against his wife or a wife against her husband, it has to do with cheating on them and giving their heart to someone else. So when we're looking at the great harlot, the whore, the bride of Christ is known as the virgin. The harlot, the whore, is the religious whore, false religion. The true religion is the bride of Christ, the pure bride, the pure and spotless lamb has the pure bride who he purified with his blood, through salvation by faith. So now you have the great harlot, which is the religions of the world encompassed in this great harlot. And it's all the gods of the world. It's who Babylon, all these false religions came forth out of Babylon and out of that area. It goes way back into the Old Testament. The history it's all there. The idolatry, all of it. It's all there. And their actions are all there. They were often violent people. They sacrificed their own children on altars to appease their gods and to gain powers and to do. It's just from the pit of hell. It's from Satan. All these religious systems who put men into bondage and into slavery, so that they cannot worship the one true God, like Pharaoh. It's what Moses said, let my people go that they may serve me. That's what God told Moses to say, that they may worship me. Well, that's the whole thing. All these other religions keeps people away from the one true God, right. And they're pursuing all these other gods and all these other things. That's what the whore is about, of Babylon. And she was made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the Spirit, capital S, in the Holy Spirit, into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, that's the beast described in Daniel. That's the beast of Revelation, the beast with the 10 horns and the 3 horns that were subdued, and the little horn who rose up, who became the Antichrist. So this beast that she is sitting on has 10 horns, 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, this religious system is sitting on the back of the political system, whose leader is the Antichrist, the little horn.
Right.
So that's the picture we have here. Okay, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones. This harlot, purple and scarlet, and she has a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Well, we kind of talked about, the false religions of the earth and so on, but this also encompasses the Catholic Church, because it is a world-renowned, authoritative church and church system in the world that many people follow after. And, we talk about the colors in the Catholic Church and that the bishops wear, and that there's that golden cup that the priest always has in Mass. And it's said to be in Catholic doctrine, it actually turns to the blood, the real blood, in the actual body, the bread, the body of Christ. Well, we know that that's not the truth. In Scripture, it is that communion is taken as remembrance, to remember his broken body for us. And in remembrance of him, we take the cup of wine, or a lot of churches use juice instead of wine, but it's to remember his death until when? Till he comes. This is what's interesting. Again, in the New Testament, he says, do this in remembrance of me until he comes. Mm-hmm. Not until we're raptured. Not until a pre-trib rapture 7 years beforehand, until he comes. When all these things, when we're raptured and he comes, do this in remembrance of me until then. So that's, again, there's the true doctrine and the false doctrine opposing one another. And it looks so much like Christ, but it is not Christ. It is a false religious system and a false prophet. So it says, and on her forehead, this harlot's forehead, a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And then it says in verse 6, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. But the angel said to me, why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not. Let's see. When they see the beast that was. Okay, now we have to consider the beast. The beast was, again, it involved several nations. And so I think it's talking about the rise and fall of the day. It was, these nations were, and then they were not, and yet is, and it rises again, kind of a thing. I think it has to do with these nations, rising and falling of nations on the beast. It says, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman sits. These are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, 5 have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. So that's talking about these kings. 5 kings have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. So in this current time, 1 is, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and then when 1 has not yet come. So this king that has not yet come is the Antichrist. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. Remember, it said in Revelation 12, Satan comes down having great wrath because he knows his time is short, and he comes to persecute the woman Israel, and he comes to persecute the church, those who have the testimony of Jesus Christ, in Revelation 12. So that's what that is talking about here. So the one who is to come here is the Antichrist. He's coming on the scene. Okay, the beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th and is of the 7 and is going to perdition. So again, that beast is the Antichrist and is talking about going to perdition. He is Satan. The beast that was is Satan and is not, is himself also the 8th. So that's a little confusing, but in the end, it's talking, he's going to perdition. It's talking about the Antichrist. It's talking about Satan and the beast, the system, it's this whole beast that encompasses the false prophet, the beast, and Satan and the Antichrist. So then verse 12, the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdoms as yet. Okay, so this is when he's talking to John. They haven't received a kingdom yet, but they're going to. So these 10 kings were, but then they were not. But they received authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and their authority to the beast, to Satan, to the Antichrist. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them. So the gathering of the battle to Armageddon, the Lord gathers his people. The battle is gathered together for the day of the Lord Almighty, and God is going to overcome them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him, called, chosen, and faithful. So first you're called, You respond to the call of Jesus, you are chosen, and you are faithful to him to the end. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So it's actually saying the waters are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues.
What verse are you on?
15.
Okay.
So in other words, the waters she sits on are multitudes of people, there are many nations and their tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot. So now you have these 10 horns, which are these kings of these 10, of these 10 kingdoms or nations, and they are going to hate the harlot, the religious harlot that's on the beast, and make her desolate and naked and eat her flesh and burn her with fire. The world, in essence, Satan, when it comes to religious systems and everything about it, it's all going to burn. In the end, people hate that religious system. It's like there's those that are the atheists and agnostics that don't want to believe in anything. They hate the system. They hate religion. They hate because it's all religion. And there's a reason. Religion. Yeah, and there's a good reason to hate religion. And part of the church who has posed or looks like Christ but is not, they especially hate because they claim to be of Jesus and they are not. They're false. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. So again, it's appointed times for everything. And this is going to be, they're going to have one mind until his word is fulfilled. It's word for word. It's going to happen. It will be fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. The description of Babylon. And I think that is the great city who was split into 3 and all of that. It says in chapter 18, we'll just kind of read through this a little bit. And it says, after these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having a great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So you have this religious system, and the kings, the political system, has committed fornication with her and committed all kinds of idolatry. And the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to the heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. So you have this picture. He's describing the beast, the Antichrist, the false prophet, the false religious system in Babylon, and this beast description of chapter 17. So now he says to his people in 18, come out of her, my people, so that you don't share in her sins and receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she has rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mix double for her. Now again, in the name of religion and religious systems throughout the earth, in the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as queen and am no widow and will not see sorrow. So she's saying, I'm not going to see sorrow. I'm the queen. She's sitting like she's the ruler. Nothing's going to happen to her. Therefore, her plagues will come in one day. What did we just read? The wrath of God being poured out from the bowls in one day. That's kind of interesting. Death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judges her. The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxurious with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour, here we have the day, now we have the hour, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. Okay, here you see the kings of the earth standing at a distance, saying, alas. Okay, remember we were talking about territorially, these things that are happening territorially. So in the whole entire earth, how things are playing out in the rest of the earth in terms of judgment, I'm not sure what that's going to look like, because the focus is on, it's Jacob and Esau. The focus is the system, the world system that came from Esau and Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael. It's the systems that came from those brothers and God's chosen people who came through the seed of Christ, which came through Isaac and Jacob and on down the line. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and on. So Babylon, that great city, all the religious systems came out of that, those brothers and those political systems. And so the rest of the world, that, because there's so many people in the world that don't really have a clue about all this, they're going their merry way, and whether they believe in God or not believe in God, or, there's so many different systems of belief that all come from that as a root, but they're looking at this going, what, this great city has fallen, so, okay. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Okay, this is talking about a world system, a world judgment coming. No one buys her merchandise anymore. Everybody trades and sells, and merchandise is going everywhere. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, clothes, purple, silk, and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, furniture wood, everything, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, every object. Cinnamon, incense, fragrant oil, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour. Now you're talking about food, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and bodies and souls of men, merchandised.
Oh.
Bodies and souls of men sold. This is what comes out of this system of Babylon, this world system, sex slaves, selling bodies and souls of people, violence, okay? This is what God is judging. The merchants of the earth are those, what was one of the commandments? Don't be covetous, don't steal, kill, destroy, okay? What comes from Satan? He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He comes to deceive and lie, and, and those who are of their father, the devil, do the same, okay? That's what God is coming to destroy. The fruit that your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. God is going to destroy all their wealth, all their stuff, all their merchandising, all of it. The merchants of these things who became rich by her, by this whore, will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. So the people who are merchandising all this stuff and don't have a clue are standing back watching this horror, this religious system, this beast being destroyed in this judgment. And they're like, wow. And saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour, here we have it again, such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who traveled by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea stood at a distance. You can write down Ezekiel 7:5 there. And cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what is like this great city? They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing and saying, alas, alas, that great city on which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. When this happens, everything that man has worked for, everything, it's all coming down. It means nothing. God is destroying it, right. All of it. And they're like mourning because all their labor was for nothing. All their, merchandising, all this stuff.
That's who they were.
Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged her, or has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, thus with violence The great city Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found any more. The sound of the harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. Music is one of the key things in every nation that seduces people into idolatry. It seduces people in the church. It seduces people outside the church, and Satan uses music for, all kinds of things. We have to be very careful about the music we listen to. Music comes from God, but Satan uses it. He was created by God, and he was a worshiper and a musician, and he knows how to use it to against us. So it says, no craftsman of any craft shall be found in you anymore, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you anymore. So these people making everything that's been, used for idolatry and all these things is going down. The light of the lamp shall not shine in you anymore, and the voice of the bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you anymore. No more people giving in marriage and marrying happening. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and saints and all those who were slain on the earth. Why? For money, for power, for idolatry. Okay. We're going to stop there.
Okay.
Yeah, the next gets into a really great part because it gets into heavenly scenes and whatnot. But that really gives us the picture, of God's heart and why he's judging them, And so we covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
We did good.
There's a city awaiting me that is beyond my sweetest dreams.